Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Harvard panics, applications down, library closes to save cash, and now a new DEI plagiarism scandal. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. From the College Fix, while other elite universities see applications spike, Harvard's applications drop. And from Campus Reform, Harvard closes library citing financial considerations. And from City Journal, copy and paste, another Harvard racial justice scholar is accused of plagiarism. From the College Fix, while other elite universities see applications spike, Harvard's applications are dropping. Anti-Semitism, loss of affirmative action, bad publicity cited as possible factors. In a year of record high applications to elite colleges, Harvard University's applications are actually down. In the fall, early admissions applications were down 17%. Overall applications are down 5%, revealed by Harvard last Thursday night, reported on by the New York Times. Quote, overall, Harvard received 54,000 undergraduate applications in this admission cycle, compared with 56,000 applications last year, a drop of about 5%, according to the article. Applications were also down at Brown, which this year had a longer application form with more essay questions. But applications were up to record highs at Penn, Columbia, Dartmouth, Yale, Amherst, University of Virginia, and many other elite colleges and universities, according to the Times. A strong theory as to why applications were down is that anti-Semitism has taken over the Harvard campus and run wild. The New York Times, the New York Post, and many other publications and pundits proffered this theory in recent news reports. The Times led its reporting on the development by noting the, quote, drop suggests that a year of turmoil, which went into overdrive with a student letter that said that Israel was entirely responsible for the October 7th Hamas attacks, may have dented Harvard's reputation and deterred some students from applying. I think that might have dented their reputation because in this story from the Harvard Crimson, Harvard alumni sue university alleging devaluation of their degrees over anti-Semitism on campus. Yeah, they've damaged their reputation over this. At the point where former students have to get together and sue the university because they've damaged the value of their degrees, yeah, that's a problem for their reputation. That letter, written on October 7th itself, was followed by many more active anti-Semitic actions, including protests, aggressive dogging of Jewish students on the main campus, active protests in the dining halls, libraries, and elsewhere, and classes interrupted by chants calling for the annihilation of Israel. The Post noted that President Claudine Gay's attempt to claim that free speech was behind the lack of any punishment for pro-Palestinian protesting made no sense. But for a university that ranked dead last in the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression's free speech rankings last year, receiving a score of -10, suddenly hiding behind the defense of free expression fell flat for many. Claudine Gay ultimately resigned from her position after well-substantiated accusations of plagiarism landed at her feet. Jewish high school students with the grades and scores to be admitted to Harvard may have looked at all the anxiety-inducing activity and decided to apply to Yale or Princeton instead. You can't blame them because you don't know how bad protests are actually going to get at Harvard. So as bad as it is now, who knows how bad it would be a couple of years from now? I wouldn't go there. However, none of the Ivy Leagues are free from anti-Semitic protesting and activity, and some, including Penn and Columbia, appeared every bit as bad as Harvard. It's unclear why Harvard saw applications fall and others did not. Bad publicity may have played a role. According to the Times, college counselors and admissions experts said that it was difficult to pin down the factors behind the decline in Harvard's numbers, but that the scrutiny has been intense and by some accounts, the reputational damage severe. It began with a historic Supreme Court decision on June 29th, striking down decades of affirmative action policy at Harvard that had become a model for higher education across the country. The affirmative action case may also have dissuaded minorities from applying. The Times quoted a private college admissions coach, Hafiz Lakhani, who said that the anxiety over campus climate was particularly acute in the fall. Students were terrified about the doxing trucks, the CEOs calling for protester names, students losing job offers for speaking up about Israel-Palestine, he said. I think that drove some applications to less spotlight schools. For all of that, Harvard still ended up with an admissions rate of 3.5%. Harvard also lost a tremendous amount of donations following all of their controversies. This is from Bloomberg. They had to go and essentially raise money in the debt markets because while they do have a huge endowment, a huge amount of money set aside that they've already collected, it's not all available to them as liquid cash. A lot of it is tied up in investments. So from Bloomberg, Harvard University floats $1.65 billion upcoming debt sale. Ivy League school plans to sell debt in March and April. Bonds will both be taxable and tax exempt, according to the filing. That $1.65 billion gives them cash to operate that they otherwise could have gotten from donations. But they're still cutting their costs from campus reform. Harvard closes library citing financial considerations. Financial considerations means it's money issues. They have to save some money. According to the Harvard Crimson, the university closed the John G. Walbrook Library. The Harvard College Observatory and the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory collections are housed at that library. Harvard Center for Astrophysics Director Lisa Cooley wrote in an email to the outlet that the decision was driven primarily by financial considerations. Cooley announced the decision in an email to some Harvard staff on January 23rd, stating the library was facing financial pressure after Harvard College's observatory budget was reduced, and a decision was made to refocus those funds. According to the Harvard Crimson, the core operations of the library will be folded into the Harvard Library, quote, to minimize the impact on CFA science, technology development, and telescope operations. We need to reduce positions where there can be increased efficiencies or broader institutional support from Harvard or Smithsonian, Cooley said. Due to the decision, Cooley said that 5 library staff members will lose their jobs. Quote, we want to express our deep gratitude to the library staff for their exemplary support to the CFA community over the years. SAO and HCO HR staff are providing support to the affected employees during this challenging time. While it's unknown what caused the library's financial issues, the Ivy League institution lost millions in donations after dueling scandals from former Harvard president Claudine Gay. During a December congressional hearing, Gay struggled to provide a clear answer when asked by Stefanik if calls for the genocide of Jews would violate the school's bullying and harassment policies. Quote, it can be, depending on the context, Gay responded. She later apologized for the remarks several times, including in a follow-up interview with the Harvard Crimson, saying, I am sorry, words matter. Gay also faced numerous plagiarism allegations before ultimately resigning in early January. And speaking of plagiarism, from City Journal, copy and paste, another Harvard racial justice scholar is accused of plagiarism. Harvard professor Christina Cross, that's this lady, is a rising star in the field of critical race studies. She earned a Ph.D. from the University of Michigan, secured the support of the National Science Foundation, and garnered attention from the New York Times, where she published an influential article titled The Myth of the Two-Parent Home. Cross's 2019 dissertation, The Color, Class, and Context of Family Structure and Its Association with Children's Educational Performance, won a slate of awards, including the American Sociological Association Dissertation Award and the ProQuest Distinguished Dissertation Award, and helped catapult her onto the Harvard faculty. However, according to a new complaint filed with Harvard's Office of Research Integrity, Cross's work is compromised by multiple instances of plagiarism, including verbatim plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism. What's mosaic plagiarism? Mosaic plagiarism occurs when a student borrows phrases from a source without using quotation marks, or finds synonyms for the author's language while keeping the same general structure and meaning of the original. She's also accused of uncited paraphrasing and uncited quotations from other sources. The complaint begins with a dozen allegations of plagiarism related to the dissertation that range in severity from small bits of duplicative language, which may not constitute an offense, to multiple passages heavily plagiarized from other sources without proper attribution. The most serious allegation is that Cross lifted an entire paragraph nearly verbatim from a paper by Stacy Bosick and Paula Fomby titled Family Instability in Childhood and Criminal Offending During the Transition into Adulthood, without citing the source or placing verbatim language in quotations. This was not a one-off error. Later in the paper, Cross lifts another full paragraph from Bosick and Fomby with minor word substitutions without placing the copied language in quotation marks or properly citing the authors. Cross cannot plead unfamiliarity with the source. Fomby served on Cross's dissertation committee, making the offense even more egregious. Elsewhere in the paper, Cross borrows language from other academic sources, sometimes citing the authors, but failing to place the verbatim language in quotations, and other times failing to cite the source at all, creating the false impression that it was her own work. For example, Cross lifts verbatim language from Examining the Antecedents of Non-Marital Fatherhood by Marcia Carlson, Alicia Van Orman, and Natasha Pilkauskas, the last of whom also served on Cross's dissertation committee without the use of direct quotations as required. According to the complaint, Cross repeats this pattern of plagiarism in at least one other paper, quote, Extended Family Households Among Children in the United States, Differences by Race and Ethnicity and Socioeconomic Status, published in the academic journal Population Studies in 2018. The complaint alleges that Cross again uses material from others, including the same passages from her dissertation advisors, without proper attribution. This complaint raises a number of pertinent questions. First, do all the allegations rise to the level of plagiarism? To answer that question, one might turn to Harvard's own policy, which states, quote, if you copy language word for word from another source and use that language in your paper, you are plagiarizing verbatim. You must give credit to the author of the source material, either by placing the source material in quotation marks and providing a clear citation, or paraphrasing the source material and providing a clear citation. Second, what is happening at Harvard? We have seen an explosion of plagiarism allegations against prominent scholars and administrators in recent months, all associated with critical race studies and diversity and inclusion programs. Former President Claudine Gay, Chief Diversity Officer Sherry Ann Charleston, DEI Administrator Shirley Green, and now star Professor Christina Cross have each come under fire for alleged plagiarism. This raises several additional questions. Did these scholars manage to earn positions at Harvard without a comprehensive review of their work? Why are Gay, Charleston, and Green, in particular, still employed at Harvard, given the seriousness of the questions raised about their academic integrity? Harvard's own policy recommends serious consequences for students who have committed plagiarism. Are professors held to a lesser standard? Finally, given Harvard's long-standing support for DEI policies and affirmative action programs, it is reasonable to ask whether scholars such as Gay, Charleston, Green, and Cross rose through the ranks on their merits, or at least in part on their identity and their politics. Further investigation is needed. Independent researchers currently looking into plagiarism at Harvard should scrutinize not only these programs, but also a control group in other, more substantive disciplines to determine whether plagiarism correlates with left-wing racial disciplines or is widespread throughout the university. This is by Chris Rufo, and he says his sources say more allegations are coming. However, other professors are sticking up for Christina Cross. They did the same thing for Claudine Gay. But let's see what this says. From the College Fix, Harvard sociologists defended against plagiarism allegations, bogus claims. I mean, this also is a concern because this is really dangerous work that she's doing. This is one of the articles cited from the New York Times, The Myth of the Two-Parent Home. New research indicates that access to resources more than family structure matters for Black kids' success. So she's saying here, just give Black kids more resources, forget about the importance of Black kids specifically having a two-parent home. It's fine to say I want to advocate to give more resources to people who come from single families, but don't worry about other races like a white child or an Asian child. If they have a single-parent home, they don't need extra resources. Only Black kids do, and even if Black kids have two-parent homes, it's not going to make such a difference on them educationally. We just need to give them lots of resources because of their skin color. That's what this article says. I will just say that's complete ridiculous nonsense. A two-parent home is important no matter what your skin color is as a child. And if you're going to reserve additional resources to try to benefit children from single-parent homes, that's okay. But you can't do it based on skin color and say, well, that's legitimate. No, it's not legitimate. And speaking of not legitimate, fourth Black female Harvard employee in 3 months to face plagiarism accusations. Colleagues are coming to the defense of a Harvard University sociologist who was recently accused of plagiarism, arguing the claims are bogus and part of a larger attack on Black female scholars in higher education. Well, it may very well be, as Chris Rufo mentioned, that, there's some concern over why is there so much plagiarism going on with the critical race theory crowd, with the DEI crowd. They do need to be looked at. And it should be compared with other professors who are not focused on DEI and critical race theory to see, is this some sort of situation where their background is not being checked as carefully because they want to move people up through the ranks to push an agenda? It's starting to look that way. Harvard's Department of Sociology released a statement last week defending Cross from false allegations of plagiarism. Quote, "We find these bogus claims to be particularly troubling in the context of a series of attacks on black women in academia with the clear subtext that they have no place in our universities," the statement reads. I don't think that's what it is. Your skin color shouldn't make you targeted, but it also shouldn't make you part of an elite class that can't be questioned. Either you did it or you didn't do it. They continue. Dr. Cross is a brilliant scholar who we ranked at the very top of our pool of applicants when we hired her from a field of hundreds on the strength of her scholarship. We are fortunate to have her on our faculty, and she has our full and unalloyed support. As for Cross, several scholars she allegedly plagiarized have also defended her from the allegations in a March 21st statement, writing they are deeply concerned about this false allegation. Quote, "It is not simply that Dr. Cross's writings do not constitute plagiarism," they wrote. "Rather, her description of a large public data set in this standardized way is simply good research practice, helping to ensure replicatability and transparency. Indeed, this is a common practice among our user communities, and it should remain so to ensure high-quality scientific research." And the Journal of Marriage and Family, of which Cross serves on the editorial board, defended Cross against what they termed, quote, "contemptible attacks aimed at undermining and threatening scholars focused on race and racism, in particular black women academics." Okay, but the multiple allegations of plagiarism against Cross are based on verbatim plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, uncited paraphrasing, uncited quotations from other sources, not her skin color. She may have been targeted as one of these diversity scholars that are putting out dangerous ideas like you don't need to have a two-parent family if you're black. I mean, that is insane. But the work is published, the words are words. Her work will be checked and we'll see what happens. It doesn't seem to really make sense that people will respond to defend her and say, look, this is racism. This is racism. We defend her. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what the motivation is exactly of somebody saying, I want to go look at this person's work. I'm not the researcher. Either she did commit plagiarism by Harvard standards or she didn't. If she did, she should be held accountable. She should not be immune from criticism if she copied someone else's work and plagiarized based on Harvard's black and white standards. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.